Oh, welcome to the Anonymous Gambler Podcast. My name is...
It doesn't matter what your name is!
There is no doubt there that my name does not matter because that 0-3 week was just absolutely and totally atrocious. Fuhrmy with the 2-1, posting it up, came in today, gave us some great insight for the week, getting ready for the weekend. You know, we're going to try to get back on track here and try to get that 60% record for the season. Listen, I apologize if the track is a little high and low in certain areas. My headphones were not working, and so I had to go off the cuff and listen to the podcast after. So I tried to get the best sound that I could. So if you need to, in certain points, you might need to turn the volume up and down. But regardless, we have our Fun with Fuhrmy segment for NCAA Week 5. Everyone enjoy. On a very special Tuesday, we have our Fun with Fuhrmy segment early coming in the week because of some travel going on. Fuhrmy, how we doing?
We're doing great, Goose. Thanks.
You know, that was a god-awful week for me. 0-3, a total misread on me for Baylor and Kansas. Kansas just completely and totally came out flat and did not play well at all, and Baylor just got out of there with a win. The UNLV Arkansas game, Arkansas State game, I'll go over more later. That turned into a torrential downpour. I think I have a lean on another game with Arkansas State that will do better hopefully this week. And then Coastal Carolina and UL Lafayette decided to leave their offenses in the locker room until after halftime, and then I made a hedging error. So but you had a better week, so please tell me about yours, because mine was nothing to write home to mom about.
All right, so I went, and of course we always face 0-3 weeks every once in a while. It's not an easy gamble, but last week I went 2-1. South Carolina covered at Vandy. Texas A&M covered at Bama. My misread was Georgia at Missouri under 64, and it was so frustrating because they only had 27 at the half in total, so they were trending in the right direction. And two of the three touchdowns in the first half were on a fumble return and a blocked punt return. So it was looking good. The offenses were underperforming, and I still missed the under. Just happens that way sometimes. So happy with the 2-1 week, of course, but could have been 3-0.
I'm kind of curious as to your thoughts here about, within your games and within your plays, and before we get into this week's picks, if your mind is starting to shift a little bit as we go over to conference play. You know, conference play really does change some things. Have you thought about some of the previous week's work by your teams that you've been playing? Or is that just very much okay, there was non-conference play, they were getting their kinks out, now we're going into conference play again, let's go back to our normal routine?
So I would say it's a mixture of both. I mean, I do look at past performance for the first 3 to 4 weeks. And what I usually try to base it on are offensive and defensive team statistics, and also trying to compare them to like opponents. I know that's not easy to do, but the same style of play, those kinds of things, is what I tend to lean on this early in the season until sort of the round robin of conference play happens, and then I think I'll look at it through a different lens.
Well, you have an interesting one here, and you're taking a big number to start off the week. Why don't you let everyone know what's going on here, and we'll start getting these picks ready. All
right. So first pick this week, I like Southern Miss plus 28.5 at Auburn. This reminds me a lot of last week's pick with Texas A&M on the road at Bama. Similar line, similar really opponents, to be honest with you, with favorites. But this one's going to come down to what I think Southern Miss's strength is, and that's throwing the ball. They're 8th in the FBS in passing at 354 yards a game, and they're top 12 in time of possession. So they hold the ball a long time. They're efficient. They move the ball. They're somewhat up-tempo, but they can also slow it down. And then the weakness of Auburn, I think, is their secondary. If there is a weakness defensively, I think it's their secondary. So I think Southern Miss can exploit them a little bit. And if they can just put up really 21 to 24 points, I don't think Auburn covers. I don't see them putting up mid-50s to cover this. So pass-first team. Auburn's going to be run-heavy. Southern Miss's defense is not that good against the run, but that's also going to burn the clock. So I think it plays to Southern Miss's favor if they can just hang a couple early scores on the board. And I like them to cover with 28.5. And I'm not going to lie, I like 28.5 a lot more than 27.5 or 28. So.
Is this a little bit of a look-ahead spot here for Auburn going into Mississippi State the following week?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's a possibility. That's a Western and SEC West showdown. So, and Mississippi State, as you're going to hear a little bit more about later, they've been struggling a little bit. So, I definitely think Auburn could be looking ahead. Mississippi State is still ranked. But, like I said, I think Southern Miss hangs around and just keeps it a little closer than anticipated. So I'll take them with the points.
I like the idea of getting points. You know me. I'm kind of an over/under kind of guy. I'm going to stay with you down there in the South, but I'm going to go to Arkansas State and Georgia Southern. Okay, and here's what I saw last week from UNLV. And I love these smaller conferences. I love the fact that you've been picking some of these teams, and especially someone like Southern Miss down there in Conference USA. I think that's kind of an underrated conference itself. UNLV just came in to this rain fest and just said, the heck with this, we're just going to get out of here. I watched it on ESPN3. To me, this game trickles down to discipline. Okay, and Georgia Southern has it in spades. 5th in penalties behind teams like Navy and Duke. Arkansas State, 129th. I don't think I could have been any more angry at the games that I took last week watching these penalties. And that's something that you're going to get with that next tier down. The a little bit less discipline, a little bit more penalties, a little bit more out of sync. Shea Wirtz, who runs the show for Georgia Southern, you don't need to look any further than him. He's coming off a bye week, okay? Last year, actually the past 2 years, Arkansas State has beat Georgia Southern. Now, they're in the other conference now, okay? Because now the Sun Belt actually has a conference title. But Arkansas State was beat up and down the river by UNLV. I told you, Armani Rogers and Lexington Thomas. 49 times UNLV ran the ball, averaging 6.3 yards per carry. UNLV only had 27 pass attempts. Shea Wirtz has 24 pass attempts this entire year with only 13 completions. I think that there was a lot of hype going into this game beforehand. I think Georgia Southern played well against Clemson 2 weeks ago, and that was their big prep game. I think there's kind of, as you talk about, similarities. Arkansas State played Alabama and got smoked. Georgia Southern hung in there against Clemson. And while Clemson may not be Alabama, I think that Georgia Southern showed against a top caliber program, potentially a national championship contender in Clemson. And it was at 3.5. It dropped down to 3. I'll take that Georgia Southern and that option offense that they went back to. I expect them to grind this thing out. And I'm not just taking the points. I think this is an outright upset victory by the Georgia Southern Eagles there.
Wow, I like the bold pick. You don't even need the points.
I don't. I'm going to take them, but I will also say that I believe that Georgia Southern's going to win this game outright. And I like those small ball conferences, and I you know me, I like that, and I almost feel neglectful that I didn't start this off with an over. So I'm going to hand this back to you, Fuhrmy, and give me something where I can cheer for some points. I would appreciate it.
All right, so I'm going to take a page out of your book, and I'll give you a little bit of an over in the SEC, which is sort of rare. So I like Ole Miss at LSU. Right now the line's over 59. So I'm gonna take the over, and a lot of this is hinging on Ole Miss's offense, of course. They average 42 points a game, and their defense averages giving up 37 points a game. So their over/under, just with them in their games, have been on an average of 79, which is crazy to me. Why I think they're going to hit the over. So first of all, they arguably have the most skilled wide receiver in the entire SEC in A.J. Brown. DK Metcalf on the other side, and he's 6'4". So they are both big physical receivers. LSU is a big physical secondary, as they have, for years. So I think that's going to be a very fun matchup to watch, just Ole Miss on offense against the LSU secondary. But I really like their up-tempo style. On LSU's side, they're very solid against the run, but they don't defend the pass well. They're 89th against the pass, but they are going to do a great job establishing the run, and I think they're going to run right through Ole Miss's defense, which is why I also like the over. They have a good running back combination, and Ole Miss against the run is 99th in the FBS, so they really struggle against the run. So this is just a really good matchup for a shootout. I think teams try to slow Ole Miss, and it's ineffective, which is obviously sort of gives us the 42 points per game on offense. And with the line at 59, LSU's proven they can put up points. I definitely think as long as Ole Miss, again, gets off to a little bit of a quick start, I think this turns into a shootout, and they could blow through 59. So that's my take. I like the over in this one.
You know, LSU scored a late touchdown there in their last game against Louisiana Tech, and even Louisiana Tech put up 21 points. If you're going to go with the over here, do you have an edge? Like, do you think that LSU is going to they're just going to, kind of have to boat race this with Ole Miss? And do you think they're going to score more points, or are you putting Ole Miss as a legit contender to potentially win this thing outright?
I think LSU will win it, but I would not be surprised if Ole Miss hangs around late. The line right now is 12, so I could see like mid-30s to mid-20s and hit 60 points, if you will, like 35-27, something like that, and then obviously that hits the over. I think LSU is going to let Ole Miss hang around just because of Ole Miss's up-tempo offense, and they made a ton of big plays. I know it was the first game of the year, but they just went right through Texas Tech.
Yes, they did.
And I know really not comparing Texas Tech to LSU's defense, but I think Ole Miss's offense has just a ton of big play potential, regardless of who they're playing. Bama did shut them down, though.
I worry about LSU slowing them down. You know what I mean? Like, Ed Ogeron has some rhythm going with him. He's feeling good. He's got that team motivated. You are down in LSU. That is not an easy place to play. I understand LSU and Auburn have two different styles of offenses. But boy, that LSU defense, I hear what you're saying. I'm trying to look up stats, like as far as, looking at who else LSU has played. Miami, who has not been impressive. Southeast Louisiana, who they shut out. Auburn, who put up 21 and they won late on that last second field goal. And then Louisiana Tech, who can go up tempo. Here's my question for you on this one, Fuhrmy. Where's your points lay at again? Are you putting Ole Miss over 28 points? Are they going to get more than 4 scores in this game?
Yeah, I actually think they will. I think that's probably around the number they're going to land at, 27-28. I think they're better than, offensively, Ole Miss is better than Louisiana Tech, Auburn, and Miami. And you just read it off. LSU's given up 17, 21, and 21 to them. So I think Ole Miss is good to get another score. And like I said, I think LSU just runs through the defense. Ole Miss's defense is not good comparatively to what they face.
I'm motivated right now. I'm motivated to go back to my roots on an over. I hate starting the day. I love the fact that you give me some good picks here because it gives me other things to watch throughout the course of the day. But I saw something on the board. It's so funny you bring up that run-pass comparison. Like, here's a strength, here's a weakness. Because as I was looking at my picks this week, and I know, here we go off the board. Bowling Green and Georgia Tech. This is not going to get and generate a lot of interest. But here's a fun fact. Bowling Green is 130th in rushing yards defense, 335. 119th in yards per rush play at 7.2. They're going against another option team. I mean, this is unbelievable because Georgia Tech 61st. And while they may run the option, they run a pretty high tempo of plays. I think that the old myth is that, oh, well, they run the option, they're not going to go fast. That's not necessarily true. If they start breaking off runs, these teams that run the option, especially teams like Navy, we've seen this with Army lately, they'll get in there, hurry up, get right to the ball. It's a read defense. And if the defense is not reading it right, we saw that with Tulane and Ohio State. Ohio State's defense is clearly a very, very good defense in comparison to Tulane. But the fact is that they never lost assignments. Remember, this is also a team that gave up like 30 some odd points to Oregon State. That's absurd. And they just said they locked down Tulane. And that's one of those games where they got into it and they got out of it. So now I think about this week coming up. I look at Georgia Tech and who do they have the following week? They've got Louisville. That's not a real big game for them. And Georgia Tech needs every single win that they can get. I think they're going to do everything they can to just blow the doors off this thing early. I'm looking for them to get like 2 to maybe even a third score in the first quarter. I mean, I'm being serious. I think they're going to run it down their throats. And then I think that they should have at least 28, maybe even 31 in the first half. And it's like, wow, I can't think that an option team's going to do that. They can, and they will if they need to. And Bowling Green is just going to continue to pass the ball. They're going to go. In their game against Miami of Ohio, they scored on the last play of the game, zeros are up on the board, and they put a touchdown, and it goes over. And I love teams like that, teams that will play to the very end. They keep their guys in, and they're just riding them out. I like the fact that Bowling Green has an up-tempo, and I like the fact that that Georgia Tech got steamrolled when we were out there in Vegas. I was watching them against South Florida, and again, Bowling Green is no South Florida, but it's kind of similar. That up-tempo offense, kind of spreading the ball around, moving things. I think Bowling Green is going to find holes in this defense once Georgia Tech starts to build a lead, and then the points are going to get on the board. I took it down for an extra 10 cents on the juice. Give me it at 65. I'm going to take that over, Fuhrmy. Let's get some points on the board so we have something to watch on Saturday at noon. You have any thoughts on that? I don't know if you've looked at any ACC or MAC play.
Not a ton, but I will say I've seen Georgia Tech blow up and put up some big points, and I do agree with you on the up-tempo. For an option team, they do run at a pretty quick clip. And the only thing I think that slows them down is if they sub in running backs, because they use a plethora of running backs as well. So I think if they can continue to run at a quick pace, I definitely agree with you about Bowling Green's run defense being lackluster. This could be an easy over if they put up the numbers like you're talking about in the first quarter.
I think it is. I think Georgia Tech puts up 42. I mean, 42-24 at least, and that's 66. And that's why I bought that half-point hook, because it would be my luck with the way that I'm running right now that they would go for a 2-point conversion and miss it. You know, like Bowling Green, they're down, or it's the end of the game and it's a score, and then they don't even kick the extra point or something like that. That would just be my luck. So I need to get back into what I know, and I'm trying to pick a couple smaller teams that I'm pretty confident in. And there's no better segue to pick something than you and your boys down there in Florida once again. Getting some extra bonus points and even a half-point a hook here. Tell me about this.
Yeah, so this is probably my favorite pick of the week, just because it's a great storyline. So Dan Mullen is returning to Starkville to take on his former team, and just a couple months after accepting the role as the new head coach at Florida. So what I think is great is he's going to return to Mississippi State, and 75% of the team, all the upperclassmen, were recruited by him. So he probably knows the team better than Joe Moorhead, the current coach of Mississippi State, arguably. So it's going to be Moorhead's still running a pretty up-tempo style and leaning on Nick Fitzgerald, but it's going to be interesting with Mullen knowing so much about the opponent this week. So a little bit about Fitzgerald. He's been struggling a bit this year. He's just passing. I mean, he's still putting up good rushing numbers, but since last year and this year combined, he's only 54.6% completion percentage, 19 touchdowns, 13 picks. And Florida's strength, of course, is the secondary. I know they're beat up a lot in the secondary, but that's definitely their strength. They don't give up a lot of big plays in the secondary. And I've also watched both of these teams play against Kentucky this year, and sort of both of them lost, I would say, in lopsided fashion against Kentucky, who is obviously underrated. So I also watched Fitzgerald when we were out in Vegas play against Kansas State. We watched that entire game, and Kansas State, there were receivers running wide open, and Fitzgerald was missing guys. So I just think Florida's defense is going to keep them in the game. The one thing I'm worried about with Florida defensively is just their ability to stop the run and the read option, of course, which is what Mississippi State leans on. I think the game's going to be close. I think it's going to be a field position battle. I think it's going to be a one-possession game by the time this is over. I give the edge to Florida in the coaching aspect just because of Mullen's familiarity with Mississippi State, and I really like them on special teams. They're going to come after punts. They have good returners. So I just think they're going to win field position battles. I give them the kicking edge, which I think is really what this game's going to come down to. So I like Florida with 7.5. I think they need the 7.5, but I think it's a one-possession game on either side.
This is a fascinating game for me to actually listen with you and think about, because I have been following Florida more because of you, like I said, and looking at Mississippi State. And man, it was so funny as we were sitting there in Blondie's in Las Vegas, and you're sitting there going, God, Fitzgerald is just missing guy after guy after guy. They're so open. He couldn't string it together. And then you look at this Florida team, and, you know, we were talking about what was happening with that Colorado State game, and how, you know, you were texting me, you're going, my God, will they just run the ball? Will they just do what the game plan should be? Do you think Florida overplays their hand here, or are they going to be as consistent as they've been in the past couple weeks? Like, they've had a couple slow starts, but they've finished games, which is huge. Do you think that they're going to do that, or is this one of those where, you know, as an old-time Homer fan, and I hate to bring that in there, that they fall off the wagon, like they don't do their game plan right, they overplay their hand, and they just miss a great opportunity?
So I mean, I will say that Florida's last two opponents, Tennessee and Colorado State, where Tennessee is a disappointment this year. Their defense, I watched them, guys just literally run through the secondary and not even get touched. They were taking bad angles. Mississippi State's going to be the best defensive team they've played this year. If not, I mean, right up there with Kentucky. Kentucky's obviously been playing very well. So I do think Florida, I think they're going to come out slow, like they typically do. You're 100% right. I just think their defense is going to let them hang around. And they've shown that they're more of a second-half team than anything. Felipe Franks is still growing in the quarterback position. Mullen is giving him a lot of free reign, maybe even more than he probably should have, but he's definitely a talent, and he's built very similar to Fitzgerald. He's a big physical runner, and he has a huge arm. Fitzgerald's just not been connecting on his passes. And I think a couple missed receivers could turn points into the board on the other side. I think Florida can turn some defense into offense, just given their speed, how physical they are, and they do a good job of forcing turnovers. So as long as they can contain Mississippi State's rush, I think they can definitely stay within a possession.
I like that half-point hook on there. I like that 7.5. That's a good number. I think that's a great number for me to get that at. And
I don't know if I would have felt the same way if it was, you know, in the 5 to 6 range. Honestly, I probably would have avoided it. But I do think it's a one-possession game, and I think Florida just hangs around, and their defense just keeps them in it.
I heard that. Hey, listen, I'm going to stay down there, not in the state of Florida, but with a team in Florida. Florida Atlantic, -3, sitting and going all the way up to Middle Tennessee State. Here's some fun facts for you. Last year, Florida Atlantic was 1-3 in their first 4 games. Navy, Wisconsin, Bethune, Cookman, and Buffalo. Then they went on a 10-game win streak. And this year, they started out with Oklahoma. Then they went up to Air Force. Then they played some off the beat team, and then they just got smoked by UCF. This is a total coaching play by me. I think the head coach of Oklahoma, and I think you look at someone who used to be there, UCF, Scott Frost. You might be able to say that they're kind of equal. I think Scott Frost is in a bad situation out in Nebraska. But then look at that UCF team and look at what they're doing. Don't tell me that's because of the current head coach. That current head coach is not screwing up. That UCF team is good. They are really, really good. I don't care that they're an AAC team or not, okay? And you look at Lane Kiffin. I think Lane Kiffin could give zero cares about his non-conference schedule. He got paid the big bucks to go down there and win Conference USA titles, to bring notoriety to that school, to recruit all the non-Power 5 schools, to out-recruit the non-Power 5 schools, and to bring in classes for long-term in there, because he knows he's not going to get a Florida State, a Florida, a Miami level talent, but he's going to get all the guys who either transfer, drop out, or aren't even eligible really to get into those schools because of grades. He's going to do everything he can. He's got Chris Robinson, who's been good enough this year at about 65% completions. He's got Devin Singletary, who's one of the top backs right now in the country. I don't care. He's not playing his best ball, but he's playing good enough. Last year against Middle Tennessee State, 133 yards and 4 touchdowns. And remember, last year, everyone sold the ship on them at the beginning. Oh, that's it. Lane Kiffin's done. He lost to Navy. He lost to Wisconsin. He lost to Buffalo. How could he lose to Buffalo? 10 games in a row. And now he's coming off a pretty banged up schedule there, playing against Oklahoma, who is top again, in UCF. And I think everyone has sold the ship, and I think the money is gone. The money is actually coming in. I saw the line drop. It's coming in on Middle Tennessee State. Why? Brent Stockstill. Their whole offense, he's a fifth-year senior, their whole offense runs on him. Their defense relies on him, because if he is not complete, their defense gets in trouble. I don't care what anyone says. They played Vanderbilt and got absolutely and totally smoked. They got Georgia, who's a higher-tier team, and they got absolutely and totally smoked. We look at all our previous runs, and because of you, Fuhrmy, this actually kind of picked out in my head. I'm thinking, okay, we saw Vanderbilt. Saw them how many weeks in a row? We saw them, they came out, okay, they beat Middle Tennessee State. Then they went out and they played Nevada. They beat Nevada. And then they go into Notre Dame, and they do what they do with Notre Dame. They blow it. They come in close. And then what happens last week? They fall completely and totally apart. They got broken by South Carolina. Absolutely and totally broken by them. And then I try to think of all these teams in comparison and say, okay, are these teams equivalent? And the answer to that is no. But I'll tell you what is equivalent. The fact that Florida Atlantic is going to grind this thing out. Their defense is not great. I understand that. But they will keep playing because their coach is going to be there to tell them, we're going to put up the points on the board. This is what we're here for. I truly believe this is a coaching play. I will take Lane Kiffin. I don't think anyone else will. I will take him -3. Not Florida Atlantic. I'm taking Lane Kiffin -3 this week. Give me him. I'm even getting him with a little bit of juice, -115 right now. I'll take it. Give me Florida Atlantic over Middle Tennessee and watch them go on the run. And give me about 2 or 3 weeks. Let Florida Atlantic start putting up points on the board, and I'm going to go the complete and total other way. I don't know what game, but what's going to happen is the market's going to adjust, and Florida Atlantic is going to be way, way overpriced. And I can't wait to take the other side. Do you have any thoughts on that? I don't know if you followed Lane Kiffin at all down there.
Not a ton. I mean, I definitely watched some of the game last week when they played UCF, and it was a battle. I mean, it was back and forth, and it was high scoring, of course. But I totally agree with your assessment of how he operates. He doesn't care if he's the underdog or the favorite. He's going to go in and try to blow someone out.
He is who he is.
Go ahead.
I just was saying he is who he is. Like, you just look at these teams, you look at how they play. You have to be the best of the rest. You know what I mean? Like, he knows he's not going to a bowl 6 or whatever. I can't even think of what it is off the top of my head. The group of 6 bowls or whatever they are. He's not going on New Year's Day. He doesn't care. Okay, but he is going to make a statement and let everyone know that he's going to smoke people. It's going to be a boat race. It's going to be and he smells blood, and he's the guy that's still running plays when there's 3 minutes left and they're already up 21. I can tell you this right now: if I hit 1 of 2 of my games early, if that noon game hits, I can tell you right now, I might also put I might put a 2-unit play down on the over on this one, because I think they're going to put up over 40 45 points, and I think Middle Tennessee State is going to be good for at least 31. But I'm looking at Florida Atlantic to put up a 45 spot here. And I think the over under right now is at like 66.5, 67. I would love to just take the over, but I kind of want to just pick a team. You know what I mean? Because I want to start getting more of like team picks in there. So I'm going to take Florida Atlantic. But I can tell you this right now, if it actually be just fair with you for me, if I'm 0-2 or if I'm 2-0, I'm probably going to take this over as well. I won't put it on the books for our podcast, but I can tell you I'm going to take that.
Yeah, that's good.
It'll
be fun to follow Saturday at the big weekend.
Well, let's remember. Let's wink, wink, hint, hint. Not look at our phones. During the ceremony. We have one more game here, and I'm interested in this one because we do have a couple West Virginia guys and one loner Texas Tech guy. You said you had some thoughts about this game. I'm curious. Give me some analysis about this Texas Tech West Virginia game as a little bonus coverage here for everyone listening.
All right, so the over-under right now is 77, which is obviously massive for a college football game, but I am actually going to take the over. I think West Virginia has not been stopped. Will Greer's been just a man amongst boys. His Heisman campaign is literally happening in front of us right now. And the Texas Tech quarterback, Bowman, since he's taken over the job in the first half of the first game, he's actually putting up just as good a numbers as far as yardage and touchdowns go. So I just think it's going to be a complete shootout. I look at Greer to have at least 6 passing touchdowns. He had 5 last week against Kansas State. All 5 of their scores were passing touchdowns. And Bowman can answer. He can answer for Texas Tech just as quickly. I do think West Virginia's defense is good, or a little bit better than Texas Tech, but I do think it's going to be a shootout. I say Greer has 6 touchdowns. Bowman has 5. There's your 11 touchdowns, 77 points, and then there's going to be a little bit more scoring somewhere.
Here's some fun facts for you, Fuhrmy. I'm going to disagree with you. You ready for this?
Yep.
3 out of the last 4 unders. You're looking at 37-34, 26-31, 48-17, 35-46. Fun fact, I was at the 26-31 game, and I had Texas Tech with 9, and then I was also at actually down in Lubbock when they got smoked 2 years ago, 48-17, and I had the over. This game back in Lubbock, here it is. Here, Rome's requested that we do an upset pick of the week, and I should have told you this beforehand, but I'm going to give my upset pick of the week. Texas Tech has gotten beat up by West Virginia for the past 4 years. Now is the time. Now is the time that they finally have a home game where they are underdogs and the town is reinvigorated. I was one of the people that was not for them. Let me rephrase that. I did not believe that they were going to be as good as they are right now. I can be honest with you. I did not think that they were going to beat Houston. And there was no way that I thought they were going to beat Oklahoma State. And I refused to jump on this bandwagon and be like, oh, I told you all along. I knew it. No, I'm not going to do that. I am shocked that Bowman has played as well as he has. But I will say this. I think if Texas Tech wants to get out of this game with a W, they're going to do exactly what they did to Oklahoma State. They're going to play a little bit tighter defense. They're going to try to slow this game down, and they're going to try not to get into an old-fashioned Texas shootout. If Texas Tech wants to win this game, it's got to be 35-31. It's got to be somewhere in there. They've got to hold on to the ball because Will Greer is really, really good. And Stills is a monster on the outside. That's how he's pronounced.
And so is Jennings.
And Jennings as well. I'm taking the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Give me 3.5, and give me them straight up. Who do you think, Fuhrmy? You think Will Greer's going to pull this one out?
I do.
Beautiful.
I do. I think he's one of the top 3 quarterbacks in all of college football.
Oof.
I do. I put Greer, Drew Lock, and Tua as 3 of the top quarterbacks, in the Power 5 conferences. I really should say that.
I don't disagree with any of that. I do not. Hey, listen, we're sitting at the 33-34 mark. Let me give out our Gambler on the Go segment here. Fuhrmy is going to sit there. He's going to take old Southern Miss, and he's going to sit there with, what is it, plus 26, and then he's going to go over 59 on the Ole Miss and LSU Tigers game, and then he's also going to take the Florida Gators plus 7.5 over Mississippi State. I myself am going to take over 65 for Georgia Tech and Bowling Green. I'm going to take Georgia Southern plus 3 against Arkansas State, and then I will take FAU minus 3 against the Middle Tennessee State. What are they, Fuhrmy? I can't even remember what they are. The Blue Raiders? The Blue Raiders, that's it. I'm going to take them against the Blue Raiders. And then a couple extra bonus picks here just in case we catch fire here. Fuhrmy likes the over in the West Virginia-Texas Tech game. I actually like Texas Tech plus 3.5 in that game to come through. And unbelievably enough, I actually like the under. Fuhrmy, any final thoughts here before we get into the wedding weekend for the last bachelor?
Let me give you a couple more just quick ones here. I like Colorado minus 9.5 against UCLA. That's a Friday night game.
I like that. I like that. I also like the over in that game. That's a good pick.
And I got a little insider information from a buddy at work who has season tickets to Penn State, but I got to throw this out there. I'm taking Ohio State minus 3.5 at Penn State.
Wow. Wow, why didn't you put that on your picks? Oh my goodness, real quick. Why? What's with that? What's the insider information?
I don't know. I think Penn State's pass defense, I don't know that they can contain Haskins at quarterback. And Ohio State has a ton of weapons. I think Penn State's going to score. I think they'll score 4 touchdowns. I just don't think that they're going to be able to stop Ohio State. I just think Penn State defensively, I just don't think they can hang.
Wow.
I don't love BYU plus 17.5 at Washington.
Ooh, we're going to talk about that one on Saturday. That's that's an interesting play. I've heard that on a couple different podcasts. I'm wondering your thoughts on that. We won't get into that now, but that's a real interesting pick. And I am not a Penn State fan, but I will say this: crazy things happen in that stadium, and I'm sure that place is going to be 120,000 strong, bumping against Ohio State. But just to get everyone under everyone's skin, I will be more than happy to take Ohio State with you, Fuhrmy.
Yeah, I mean, I respect Penn State. I just don't think they're going to hang this year. Urban Meyer's back. Ohio State has a lot of momentum. They've looked great on offense. I know they haven't played a ton of good teams yet, but I mean, they are putting up some crazy points. They're the 2 top scoring offenses in all of college football.
That's wow, very, very interesting. Listen, Fuhrmy, hang on the line. I appreciate it. Hold on 1 second, all right, brother. Hey, listen, that was our Fun with Fuhrmy segment. We went on there. We have a big weekend coming up, and we're trying to get off. Well, I'm trying to get off the schneid, and Fuhrmy's been nothing but killing it, sitting at 7-5. I'm at 4-8. I'd love to get at least back 2 more wins here, if not a 3-0 weekend, to try to get me up to close to 500. We're going to get Rome's on here before the big wedding day, so we can talk to him so that he can find some money somewhere, because he's the only one doing worse than me. Listen, everyone have a safe trip out this weekend. We will see you at the wedding, and we will talk to you next week.